Hey there, it's Jen, and I am here to do kind of a little wrap-up video for my collection Disconnection series. This is a series where I've shown you a bunch of different layouts using the Pink Paisley Fancy Free collection by Paige Evans, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview. I think it's interesting to see all of the layouts together or in a row to see how they differ from each other and what I used. At the end of the video, I will show you what I have left over from the kit, and I think that working with one collection and then making a bunch of layouts with it and seeing what you have left over really helps you determine what items to purchase in the future, because now I know that I use more of a certain thing versus another thing. So I thought that was an interesting thing to learn from this experience that I didn't really think about last time I did this with the Crate Paper Wonder collection, but I did think about it with this one. So I'm sure it varies a little bit based on the different collections that you use, so I'll go ahead and show you all of the layouts, then I'll go through what I have left over, and then there will be a giveaway, so if you watch to the end of the video, make sure you listen for how you can enter in to win a $20 gift certificate to scrapbook.com. So I'm going to show you the layouts in the order that I created them, and this is the stack of all 10 layouts, but I'm just going to move these other 9 aside and start with the first one. So this is the first layout I created using this collection, and I wanted to show you guys how, if you weren't able to get your hands on all of the things from the collection, because this was a hard collection to get your hands on, that even if you just got a few things, you could make a really awesome layout. So this just used the 6x6 paper pad and the puffy stickers and the glitter thickers, and that was it. So this is a very simple layout. I really love the way this one turned out, and I just sprinkled some spray mist in some different colors to kind of get a confetti kind of look. This was a birthday layout. I hand cut the letters out of the different pattern papers. So in this collection there was a set of thickers that had all different patterns on them. And I know that they sold out fairly quickly, so if you just hand cut your own out of some of the pattern papers that have a variety of colors in them, you can kind of get a similar effect, and I really like that. So that was the first layout. This was the second layout, and this one used a lot of 6x6 papers as well. I cut these little circles, or I punched them rather, out of the 6x6 paper pad, and then just created a little collage on the side here. I layered up some pattern papers behind my photo, and some of these are from the 12x12 paper pad. And then to help my photo stand out, I also put some computer paper back here, and I used the little bits that I punched all these circles from, just because I thought it was a fun, interesting texture to add into my layers. And then there are a few die cuts, and I used the alphabet thickers and some chipboard here. So this is a fun one that uses a bunch of different colors. Originally I wanted to show how you could use all masculine colors on a layout. And I think that this layout uses colors that work both well for masculine and feminine. But I do have one that's mostly greens and blues later on that I created. But this was a really fun one, and I just wanted to show how, the kit, even though it has a lot of pink in it, you can take it in a non-girly way. So this was layout number 2. And I just put some thread around in matching colors around some of these circles, and I thought that was a fun little thing to try. So that's the second layout. And I forgot, I backed it on a piece of paper from the 12x12 paper pad. So that's what I did there. The third layout, I wanted to do a Disney layout. So there are lots of fun colors in here, and I thought Disney when I saw this collection, just because of all the fun and bright colors. I think it works well for Disney, and so I wanted to show that. So this is just a photo of all of the little girls walking to the park, and they're all in their princess dresses, and so I'm talking about that here. And this is using some of the cut apart cards from there's a paper in the 12x12 paper pad that has a cut apart sheet on it, and so I wanted to show how you could use those and just layer them up. And then I used another pattern to back this photo. And then this is a cut file from my shop that I just welded 3 of these circles together, and then I backed it with some of the paper from the 12 by 12 paper pad as well. And then just sprinkled around. I was surprised how much I used the buttons. I'm not a button person, at least I didn't think I was, but I did use them quite a lot, and I thought they were a fun pop of color, so I liked using the buttons. So that's the 3rd layout. Now the 4th layout is the one where I really did focus on the blues and the greens and the yellows. So I just sprinkled some mist in the background, some color shine from Heidi Swapp in all of the colors that are here. This is a wood veneer piece that I got from Big Picture Classes that's part of a class that Paige Evans teaches on that on there. That's, you can buy this even if you don't take the class, but this was featured in one of Paige's classes. And I wanted to back that, so I used the 6x6 paper pad again to just back this cut file, so you get a whole lot of the pattern here without it overtaking the layout. And I focused on all of the blues and the teals and the yellows here. So I wanted to show how you could do that. And I used the buttons again, and I used there was wood buttons, there were chipboard, and there were regular kind of buttons. So I used all 3 here, and then used some of the little hearts that were included in the collection. So I really love the way this one turned out. This is one of my favorites. Now this layout, if I can pick it up, is backed on a kind of a brighter color. So I will always default to white. I love white cardstock, but I was trying to push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and scrapbook on some brighter and different pattern papers. And so the next couple layouts I did that, definitely did that with. And I also wanted to stitch. I was definitely influenced by Paige Evans in using this kit. She designed the kit, or I keep saying kit, but I mean collection. She designed the collection, and I was definitely inspired to use her products in a way that she would use her products. And so I stitched a bunch of hearts down the center, and I did it in rainbow order, and then, well, kind of ish rainbow order. And then I embellished, I found little bits and pieces from all of the variety of embellishments, and I just embellished based on the color. So there's pink at the top, then red, then teal and blue, and then a lighter pink, and then yellow at the bottom. So I just kind of embellished that way, and then I put all of my photos on the outsides, and that was a fun way to use the products. Now the only paper I used was the background paper, so I think that you can get a lot of layouts done if you have a lot of the embellishments. You can just use those to add the color to your layout, and I'll show you a little bit later one of my other layouts that uses mostly paper to embellish with. So this is using just a bunch of embellishments and not a lot of paper, and I'll show you another one that uses very few embellishments and a lot of paper. So that was a fun one to make. This next one is one I stitched on again and that I was trying to use a fun background for. So again, this is one that only uses this background paper, is really the only pattern paper on here except for these 3 circles, which are punched from the 6x6 paper pad. So again, I'm using mostly just embellishments. The background is very bold, so I wanted to keep it fairly simple, and I used a little journaling tag here, and then I pulled from the embellishments all of the similar floral pieces, but in 3 different textures. So I've got a puffy sticker, a chipboard sticker, and then a transparent piece here, and that was fun to use all of those. And then the tag also has those same florals on it, as well as this little love this dimensional sticker that has it on there as well. And in this case, I used the alphabet stickers, the font that the thickers that are with this collection, but it was going to be too much to have them colored, so I painted them white. It's actually kind of a cream, a little bit of off-white. The interesting thing about this collection is it uses both cream and white, which doesn't bother me to mix, and so that was fine, but it's just a little bit different than, you know, things that you typically see. So, but this is an Easter layout, definitely with all the florals in this collection. That was a a good one for me to make. I don't know why, but I love making Easter layouts, so there is that one. This next one definitely focuses on a single color, which is pink, because I wanted to talk about all of our pink laundry. And so what I decided to do for this one, again, I went to my 6x6 paper pad. I cut squares of pattern paper, and then I cut them in half. And so these are all little pieces that the triangles are just squares cut in half, and I ended up stitching them all down. I wanted to add the stitching detail because I'm talking about clothing, and so I thought that really went well together. And then I just embellished a whole lot just right here in this area, and I just focused on all of the pink embellishments that I had. Now, the puffy stickers had numbers on them, and I used them on that first layout that I did for the number 10 because that's how old my daughter was turning. You could use those for a date. Because it just had the numbers 1 through 0, or 1 through 9 and then a 0, I was trying to get a little bit creative with how I used them. So for this one I used 24/7 because it looks like we wear pink 24/7, and so that was just a fun way to use them, and that just happened to work out that those puffy stickers were the right color for this particular layout. So again, focused on the pink for this one. This next one is one of my favorites, my very favorites, and this uses a cut file from my shop, and I just, again, used the 6x6 paper pad and backed the cutout shapes with different patterns, and I really, really, really love the way it turned out. I kept everything else very simple, and I used one of my little journaling tags, a transparency, and then this is a chipboard piece, but I cut it in half because I wanted to have the same chipboard, or I wanted the same colors on either side, and so I just cut it in half, and that worked really well. And then I used the puffy thickers for my title and a little bit more embellishment, so there are hearts everywhere on here, which I really love. So when you do something like this where you're really focusing, it doesn't look overwhelming because it's just backing hearts, and it's very contained, and there's still a lot of white space, but you get to use a lot of pattern. So this is a fun way to use, if you love the papers in a collection, a really fun way to use them. The next one is very, very simple. This is another one of my favorites, and this one was definitely fueled by the products in the kit. All of the different items that were available for purchase, most of them had some sort of frame included, and so like both of these came from the ephemera pack, and so there was acetate and cardstock in the ephemera pack, and so I used those. And then the chipboard had a couple of frames on it, and the wood veneer ephemera pack had frames as well. So I just took 4 different materials of frames and made a grid on this layout, and then kept the rest very, very simple. So there's only a couple of embellishments that are cut from pattern paper. I think that this was cut from a little journaling card, but I just cut those from pattern paper, and then there's just a couple other embellishments here, and I kept it very, very simple. Backed it on some pattern paper, which I love the way that this pattern just kind of peeks out from the sides. It looks really cool. So that was a very, very simple one. Now my final layout, which is just in a video from yesterday, this is one that really focuses on using paper and less embellishment. The embellishment on this page, the major like focal piece, is all of this floral at the top. And I cut these florals from both the 12x12 paper and the 6x6 paper so that I could get a couple of different sizes of these flowers, and just kind of clustered them all together at the top. I noticed that I hadn't used any of the silver thickers, so I decided to use them here, and added a couple other things, but used a pattern paper for a border. And I found that a lot of the pattern papers in this collection make really great borders because they have lots of colors on them. But and then if you just show like a little bit of them, then you get a really nice look. So on this one, the same thing. I really like the way that just a little peek of the paper looks coming out from behind. So those are the 10 layouts that I created, and you can see that I did towards the end use a lot of white cardstock. I feel like with a collection that's this colorful, using white cardstock really helped to tone it down a little bit, and I just love white cardstock anyway, but you can definitely scrapbook on the backgrounds of a lot of these papers as well. They were pretty tonal, and I think that they work well to scrapbook right on top of some of the patterns. So especially there were a couple like this that were a fade that were very, very nice to scrapbook on top of. So those are the 10 layouts. Now let me show you what I have left over and kind of explain to you what I discovered as I, after I've made all of these layouts, what I've discovered about how I used this collection. So I'll just pull out this top part first that has the like all of the embellishment packages and things like that. Now here in this little side container, I just kind of shoved all of the papers that I cut up from the 6x6 and 12x12 paper pads. So these are leftovers that I cut apart from pattern paper sheets, and I just left them there. Now I thought I would try to use up some of the flare in my stash in this kit, and I put a bunch in here, but I didn't use any of them, and that's fine. I did make a big dent in the buttons, which I didn't think I would use very much, but I used all but 2. And so that was interesting to me. I also used all but 1 of the layered stickers. So there were just, I think, 6 of them, but they were a fun little addition to add, and I like how they have stitching and dimension on them already. You don't have to do really anything to them. The other thing I used most of is the puffy stickers, and the numbers, like I mentioned, were a little bit tricky to figure out, and so I have a 6, 8, and a 9 left, and I may use those on something, and then the word most, because that went with most favorite, and so I was trying to think of another use for the word most, but I didn't. The ampersand, and then this little hexagon. These right here were cards that were from the 12x12 cut apart sheet that I mentioned. I used some of them on a layout, and then I have some of them left. They're just from a 12x12 paper, so that's no big deal. Now I do have a lot of these little this is the like journaling tags. I'm surprised at how many I have left of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this 8th one I did cut off a piece and use a part on a layout. So I have a bunch of these left over. I only used a few of them. They're really cute. I'll just throw them in my stash, but I thought it was interesting that I didn't use those. I think part of the reason is that they're shiny, and so they're hard to write on. I mean, they're easy to write on, but it's hard not to smear when you write on them, and that's a little bit frustrating. The next thing are the wood pieces, and I didn't use these very much. I bought everything in the collection that was available, and except for the page kits, and because I wanted to just see how, what things I would use and what things I wouldn't, and what I was surprised about. So again, I was surprised about the buttons. I was surprised about the these layered tags, but I am surprised that I didn't use more wood veneer. I just don't know. I don't know. It was hard for me to use these for some reason. I'll put them in my stash and see if I get them used, and if not, I'll end up giving them away. But yeah, that was something that it just didn't work for me. I don't know why. The ephemera I used a ton of. I only have a few pieces left, and I used almost all of it. So I'll throw these pieces into my stash, but yeah, I used a ton of the ephemera pieces, so that was good. And I knew I would because I always do. So that's what I have left over as far as like embellishments go. Let me show you what I have as far as the thickers go and the chipboard sheet. Move this out of the way. Okay, so there were two thicker sets. One was this, I don't have them in their packaging, but one was this set of thickers that's 2 two different colors, and then it has a lot of titles on it. Now, glitter thickers are not something I use super often. I kind of reserve it for, I don't know what I reserve them for, but I would use them more likely if they were a plain color, like if they weren't glittery. But I did use a few of the titles, and I used a lot of the hearts, which were fun to include. And so these were good. I don't know that I would buy glittery, I mean, I have glittery puffy thickers in my stash, but I just didn't turn to them very often, and I felt like they didn't work for me. I don't know why. It's just not my style, I guess. And so this is something that now I know I might not turn to again. The thickers were super, super cute, and I loved the layouts where I used them. I knew that using thickers that are all different colors isn't normally my jam, but I'm attracted to them because they look so cute in the package. But I do think they're hard to use. They worked out great for me on these layouts, and I'll keep these around and see if there's a couple more words that I can spell, but I did use a bunch of them, so I don't have a ton left. I do have a lot of numbers, which would be fun to use all on one layout, maybe about a birthday or something like that, I think. I like using things all together like that, so we'll see. The chipboard I did use a bunch of. Now there's a few pieces left over. I have the word embrace, a couple of frames here, these little label thingies. I didn't use any of these triangles. Those are harder for me, I think. I do have these two little arrows, which I think I'll definitely use. I didn't use any of the plants. I felt they were a little bit large for the layouts that I created, but I could see using them on a layout specifically about planting in a more literal sense, although you could definitely use them in a non-literal sense. And then I have a few of the chipboard buttons as well, and a heart, and just a couple of things. So I'll keep this around because I do think I'll use some of these pieces, but I didn't use all of them. So that's what I have for thickers and chipboard. Now lastly, I have the paper. Now I will say, oops, I think I could have just gotten the 6x6 paper pad for this collection and made most of the layouts that I created, because I turned to it more often than I did to the 12x12 papers. So sorry, I did get both paper pads because I wasn't able to get my hands on the actual 12x12 papers when I bought this collection. And so, yeah, I definitely turned to the paper pads, and that was fine. Let me show you, I still have a lot left of both. And so for the 6x6 paper pad, there's a lot more ripped out, but I have at least one of each sheet still left, I think. And so I did rip out some papers that I didn't end up using, but I used these a lot, and it was really great when I wanted to include a whole bunch of patterns at once. I saved all of these because I thought I might use them on a layout, which I still might, because I think it's fun to incorporate packaging or little offcuts and bits onto layouts and see how you can, use them in an interesting way. But yeah, I still have a lot of the 6x6 paper pad, but I did use it a lot. And for the 12x12 paper pad, I definitely still have a lot left. I think I used a couple, maybe 3 or 4 sheets from here, and there's 48? Yeah, so I didn't use very much compared to how much there is. This paper I did cut up. This paper I cut up. I used just a little bit of this in a layer. And then I used a couple of sheets for backgrounds, and then I did cut up the cut apart sheet, which I will show you really quickly. I think these are really great to cut apart. I ended up using the 6x6 paper pad to cut these apart because it just worked better for the size that I was, making. It worked out better that way. But let me find that cut apart sheet. I know it's in here. Oh, there we go. So I did go ahead and rip one of these out and cut it completely apart. So there were a couple of, so I did use some of that as well. But for the most part, I used a lot of the embellishments, but I still have some left. I used a lot of paper I felt like, but I used more of the 6x6 paper pad, so I feel like I definitely could have just gotten the 6x6 paper pad and been okay with it. I feel like with a lot of collections, I could do that. And if you haven't seen my 6x6 paper pad love series, it's my most popular series on my YouTube channel. And I show you 10 different ways to use 6x6 paper pads. I love 6x6 paper pads. I think they're super versatile. A great way to get a taste of a collection without buying the entire collection. Or if you'd rather just buy the 6x6 paper pad, which is like $6 instead of buying a sheet of each pattern paper, which could cost you $20 or more, depending on how many papers are in the collection. I think 6x6 paper pads are a great way to go. So that's what I have left. That's what I created. I hope that this series has been interesting to you. I think for my next series, I've been itching to create another stash kit. So if you'll leave a comment below, letting me know what your favorite video in this series was, you'll be entered to win a $20 gift certificate from scrapbook.com. You have until midnight Mountain Standard Time on Tuesday, July 26th to enter, and then I'll pick a winner on the 27th. So next Wednesday, a week from today, is when I will pick the winner. So I wish you all luck. I am so grateful for all of you that have watched and left me encouraging and kind comments. I like doing these YouTube series. I wish I could do more. I used to do more on my channel, but I will do another series, and like I mentioned, I think the next one's going to be a stash kit. I have done those in the past, so if you're interested, be sure to check out my playlist called Old Meets New Stash Kits, where I mix older products with new products and just create layouts using those kits that I create. And so you can check that out if you're interested and want to see more about what is coming next. And I will talk to you again on next Tuesday to show you, or next Wednesday to tell you who is the winner of this gift certificate to scrapbook.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.